Today we talk with Scott Stratten, the UnMarketing ninja, about why it's important to be present on social media, Ritz-Carlton going the extra mile, and how to make a viral video. Coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Marketing Mavericks is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Marketing Mavericks is brought to you by NatureBox. NatureBox ships great tasting, healthy snacks right to your door. Forget the vending machine and start snacking smarter with healthy, delicious treats like Kung Pao pretzels. To get your free NatureBox sampler, go to naturebox.com/twit. That's naturebox.com/twit. And by Hover. Hover is the best way to buy and manage domain names. It's simple, honest, and easy to use. For 10% off your first purchase, go to hover.com and enter promo code MM9. And by Shutterstock.com. With over 40 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 20% off image subscription packages on new accounts, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code MM914. This is Marketing Mavericks, episode 24, recorded Monday, September 22nd, 2014. UnMarketing. Welcome to Marketing Mavericks, where we talk about everything at the intersection of marketing and technology. Everything from social media to creative, you name it, we discuss it. And we talk to the people who are leading the space with their wisdom and their ideas. And today is no different. Today, our guest is somebody that I've been following for quite some time. He's a really funny guy, but he's also really funny in the way he communicates how we should build brands, whether it's personal or professional, for our company, and how basically we use social media to change the way that we build relationships. He's a best-selling author. In fact, his fourth book is getting ready to come out. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And he is also the president of UnMarketing.com. He's at UnMarketing on Twitter. Scott Stratten, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me back. I am looking forward to this.
Yeah. So, been following you for quite some time. I mean, you're pretty, the way that you use social media is very organic. You don't, you're not big, I think, on structuring, your social media, but you have quite a fan base just on social media alone. And people love you.
My false popularity is of epic proportions. I tell you that. I've been like this since the dawn of using it. And I've been the same ever since. I just think social media is about connection and talking and speaking your mind. And I've never wavered from that. It doesn't matter when Twitter was in its infancy or social media was just on corporate wise, and is still today where it just looks like a whole new kind of landscape. It's still to me about connection. I know there's a lot more noise nowadays and a lot different, but it's still the same thing for me. It's a place where I can give my opinion and then interact with those, on top of that opinion. And we still try to do it now.
It's really clever, your name that you've stuck with for years, which is UnMarketing. You've had your agency, which I think now you do straight public speaking on this because you're so busy doing that alone. What is UnMarketing? It's self-explanatory probably, but what does that really mean to you?
Well, it's UnMarketing is, I picked the name 15 years ago because I thought it would look good on a book cover, and I think it does. And it's all about not being a hypocritical marketer. That people hate getting cold calls, but they try to do it for their own business. And I've always thought that said, hey, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to do things. And connections about, if you do business with people like, and trust, then why aren't you doing things to create more trust, getting more people to like, and getting more people to know you? I always believe that business has been built on relationships. And if we are our biggest asset, then we have to use that as an asset and connect with people.
And you've got lots of examples, personal examples, whether they've been clients in the past or personal experience. Always fun to hear you talk about them. And I want to get to those, but I want to go back a little bit to why you decided to get into marketing. In fact, I think, and I've heard you say this publicly, but if you go to your LinkedIn, you started in human resources, and that's such a big difference from marketing. I mean, I can't think of anything bigger spread than HR to public relations or marketing. What made you decide to get into HR to begin with?
Well, HR, because I'm a huge human rights guy and about employment law and fairness in the workplace, and being like anybody else working minimum wage jobs, I'm like, this is not the right thing to do. And I thought, well, this is where I'm going to go into. So I got into HR, I went for school, got into a field, and I realized my problem with HR was I hate people. And that really threw it off for me. And I had to find an industry where hating people was an asset. So I found marketing. And but in all seriousness, though, HR and marketing actually have a lot of similarities because it's all psychology. One is the act of why people do something internally in a company, and the other one is why people do something externally. And it really is about human nature and motivation. And I realized that there's the most important marketing we can do is hire properly. So it gave me a really unique perspective on marketing. I noticed in the trenches that marketing was very separated from HR. Like you said, there was no bigger difference between marketing. And if you actually look at it, work together, your biggest marketers are your employees. If you're a retail store, your biggest marketers are the people on your front line, but we were ignoring them. And I thought there was a difference there. I thought we could actually kind of bridge that gap. And that kind of gives me my unique viewpoint on a lot of things. And I still love HR. I still love human rights stuff. I still, I taught employment law at the college up where we used to go for years. I still have a huge passion for that stuff.
And it comes across, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that I think is really powerful about marketing is that you're trying to understand the customer. Anybody that you're trying to sell a product to, you have to understand what it is that they want to be able to do that. And I think you nail it most of the time, for sure. I mean, it's really interesting to hear you talk about some of the things. And you've actually written about a lot of these experiences in your books. I mentioned you've written 4 books. One of my favorite books is QR Codes Kill Kittens, but basically that's just because of what you call the book. But you started with unselling. I think, let me see if I got this right here. You've got Unselling, the New Customer Experience, QR Codes Kill Kittens, the Book of Business, Awesome, Unawesome, and your new book that's coming out on September 29th, which is?
Yeah, actually, UnMarketing was the first one, and Unselling is the new one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Unselling is the new one. Yeah, it's coming out September 29th, and it's a play off of still my whole brand. It's just a continuation of the same thing about what people think about us. That at the end of the day, that branding is none of our business. Branding is what the customer says when somebody says, "What do you think about ABC accounting?" Their answer, "That's your brand." And we try to think in our industry of marketing that we're the ones that get paid to brand and do corporate identities and do brand messaging and all these ridiculous things that are just Latin for, or sometimes charge a lot of money to clients. When in reality, it's that customer that says it. Not one customer in the history of man has ever recited a mission statement from a company. It's what they think.
So you obviously write about all these things in your books, which I'm really excited again for your next one. And so I'll be one of the first people, and you can pre-order those, and we'll get to that in the show. But I want to step back even further to, we talked about HR and you made some comparisons. Do you think that that's like marketing? And I can kind of see that. But as a child, you're really funny. Okay. So people love to follow you, not just because you're smart, which you are, but you're a very funny guy. What's more important? Is it being funny, or is it the knowledge, or is it, how do you decide how you're going to communicate your message?
I really think humor opens people's minds up to at least what you're saying. And that's why the keynotes work so well for me, is that I'm able to say, if I get you laughing, I think you'll listen. And if you listen, you're going to learn. And I don't think humor has its time and place, but you don't learn anything from humor alone. And if you just, allow to get the humor in there, then I can kind of hit you between the eyes with some of that knowledge that I'm trying to get across from you. I think when you make people smile, catch them off guard a bit, marketing is so humorless a lot of the times if I can get the humor in there, then it'll allow people to want to listen and say, okay, what's this guy talking about? That's why there's sarcastic footnotes in the book. That's why I use that kind of humorous tone in writing, because it not only sets me apart from other people, that's my personality. My personality's always been that way. And I just kind of refuse to change it for anybody, whether or not people told me I need to act differently on stage when I was just, building my business or in consulting. I said, look, this is the way I am. This is my voice. And whatever I attract people to, I do. I repel with it.
And it's funny because even though you wrote the book QR Codes Kill Kittens, you still got hired by Purina to come out and and speak to their event, and they obviously have a lot of respect for what you do. There he goes. Look at Mew, the kitten. That's really cool. They did that. That's a very smart marketing,
awesome,
aren't they?
Well, I started the whole talk with them. The funny thing, I started the talk saying, "Hey, I don't buy your product." Usually starts off with, and they actually said, "We know." We know because you're not our demographic, and here's our data. So they actually knew whatever I fit into in the category. I didn't buy it. But the more important question was why? Why I don't buy it. And it's because it wasn't recommended to me by the pet store we shop at. And we do a natural kind of, no wheat and everything for our dogs. And they just came out with a line like that with that type of food. So it was funny to say, it was just, when I say I'm trans, I don't consult anymore, so I don't have to talk in front of a room and try to get them as clients. I just simply, they're not going to bring me back next week to speak again. So I got to tell them exactly what I think.
I want to talk about some of those examples of funny and wit and some of the experiences you've had, some fails and some success stories that you've seen, you've personally witnessed on social media. Before we do that, though, I want to thank a sponsor of Marketing Mavericks, which is NatureBox. You've probably heard they take pretty good care of us here at Twit. We have NatureBox all over our lunchroom, and it makes it easy for me because I know I need to drop the candy bar and grab some NatureBox. I drop the potato chips, and I'm not saying we haven't had that kind of junk food too, but NatureBox is so good for you. Do what I do. Get natural, delicious snacks at naturebox.com. I'm going to give you a chance to get free snacks with a sampler box featuring 5 of their most popular snacks. NatureBox has hundreds of delicious snacks. I don't feel guilty about eating them because they're better for me. They've got 0 artificial ingredients, 0 trans fat, 0 high fructose corn syrup. You'll even find snacks that are low in sugar and gluten-free. So in the afternoon, when you're hungry, do what I do. Grab peanut butter nom noms from naturebox.com or baked sweet potato fries or blueberry almond bites. Whatever your thing, savory or sweet, they've got it. So good and so good for you. So start your free trial and get a free sampler box at naturebox.com/twit. Stay full, stay strong, and start snacking smarter. Go to naturebox.com/twit, and we thank NatureBox for their support of Marketing Mavericks. Because I am going to grab, I wish I had some NatureBox right here, but every time that Scott's had to leave, I could just grab some and snack. But
I want some NatureBox now. I want those peanut butter nom noms. Make it happen, somebody.
I love
somebody somewhere. Call somebody, please.
I love the name of some of this stuff, like Kung Pao pretzels, peanut butter nom noms. That just sounds good. I wish
and amazingly, I can segue a sponsor and back into what we were saying. But so there's humor in the product names. But here's the key: humor doesn't work if the base isn't good. If their product wasn't good, the name doesn't matter. Right? So
that's true.
Humor works if the base product or service is good. And that's why humor is just pointless unless you can back it up with a product. So now I need some of them peanut butter thingies.
I know. Well, next time I'll send some to you in advance. I mean, hey, sign up for it, right?
Got it.
Taco Bell. Okay. I have to get to this because one of the accounts that you've talked about a lot in speaking, and we've actually had Taco Bell on the show. Chris Brandt, their CMOs, come on, and they do such a clever way. In fact, when I think of Taco Bell, I think of it in a nostalgic way, right? So people that, grew up and are a little older now, remember it when they were young, but they've been able to reach out to a younger and younger demographic by using social media. Instagram is something that they use to hire. In fact, that's one of the places they get the most recruits for hiring. I mean, they use social media in so many different ways, and they're pretty clever with it. What would you say about a brand like Taco Bell? What can other brands learn from some of the things that Taco Bell has done?
They just, I think they've got that great voice where their voice matches that brand. Where before, Taco Bell to me wasn't necessarily even a fun brand. They were a fast food. They were a kind of a cheaper food that you could go eat, and especially at late night. And that's how they were. And then social gave them this opportunity to create almost a voice of engaging, like one of the most famous tweets I share, and I still share as my closing thing on my talk. We used to have it in the middle, but it made the audience laugh so hard it trumped anything else I was saying on my talk. And you never want to put that in the middle, so we put it at the end, where one guy said, "I think I had a food baby this morning, and I think Taco Bell is the father." And they replied with, "I want a DNA test." Like, it was just so brilliant and wonderful that it gives such a great personality to sometimes people are like, well, they could do that. They're Taco Bell, but they weren't like that before. It gave them a real opportunity to come out and say, you know what? Personality sells, personality spreads. And I think, nobody would have said 2 years ago that Oreo was going to be a brand you thought of when you thought of fun, or, that real-time marketing example, or fun or kitschy or whatever. But they came out in the past year or 2 years by doing all these different campaigns. Obviously, the most famous one being the block. They were never known as a fun cookie or whatever, or a brand. They were a famous cookie. So it gives you an opportunity, if you have the right people in place, to create a real voice, not just a voice that we have a narrative as in branding, but a real voice interacting with customers. Nobody ever thought they'd want to tweet with their cookies or anything. And I'm sure I don't need to talk to my toilet paper on Facebook anytime soon, but it really gives us an opportunity to keep a little bit of it could be humor. It could be political with some people, but it just gives us a new avenue for connection and communication.
Well, and here's the thing too. I mean, we do talk about Taco Bell because they do a great job, but they do a lot of this stuff on Twitter. And what I found is that and you've said this, not everybody has to be on social media, period, but not every brand is really active on Twitter. But when they are, you see the type of activity that happens, whether it happens on Reddit, whether it happens on Twitter. That kind of stuff goes viral. It ends up on Facebook, and then it ends up in mainstream media. So this, all points marketing, where they're getting a lot of different marketing channels, happens organically. But because they were paying attention and they used, whether it was humor, whatever, but they were really responsive to a customer at the time who was saying something, or, maybe a potential customer, right?
And that's where the biggest point that rarely gets talked about in social media now. There's countless books and talks and everything about transparency and authenticity in social media channels, but that immediacy one to me is almost as important as the other two. That the speed at which we reply almost trumps the context and the actual content of the reply, where if they took 3 days to reply to it, it doesn't have the same effect, especially in a customer service avenue as well. The same tweet 5 minutes later versus 5 hours later will have an entirely different impact on a customer who may not be happy with your product or service. And people tell me, well, Scott, that's not marketing though, that's customer service. What do you think customer service is? The better we serve our customers, the more often they're going to buy. And in social media, it's a public channel. So it's actually exponential marketing that we're doing. And that's why I think this unmarketing, unselling thing is all for one or one for all in a brand sense.
You've talked a lot about, again, in the people who have heard you speak about not having to be on social media if it's not good for you. And I think that really probably applies to specifically maybe people who just don't have time to be responsive, I think I've heard you say. But from the standpoint of your brand, if you have the time to do it, you have to. And you have to be quick and responsive. You can't, have somebody message you. And people, the expectation is they think you're listening. They think that you're there. And so if you don't respond fairly quickly, then they just think that you're purposely ignoring them. So it's actually been a detriment to some brands. I think, I've personally experienced it myself. You have too. You've also experienced the contrary. So tell us, you talked about the airline industry, and you got some funny examples there. But you've got some funny examples of how you've had both good and bad experiences with clearly an industry where we don't have a lot of options, but yet they still come through. So what's an example of one of those?
Well, one of the things that we used it in unselling is I had a problem with I was flying from JFK. I fly pretty much for a living. I got to get from conference to conference, and so I do have somewhat of a choice with airlines. That, obviously for me, like anybody who's listening right now or watching it travels, direct flight trumps all for pretty much that. That's it. But if we can get from place to place, I get to JFK, and I love New York City. Allison and I love New York City, but we hate the airports there. I don't like them at all. JFK, Newark, and LaGuardia, no good. But I'm at JFK. I'm there early, like a good Canadian. I'm there like 3 days early. And I'm in line, and we get to the front, and flight attendants just start pushing past me like I don't exist. And I'm sure anybody who's flown has witnessed the beautiful Cirque du Soleil-esque type of moves that pilots and flight attendants can make to just bypass everybody and go to the front of the line. And by the seventh flight attendant, that hip checked me. I've had enough. And I turn around. I'm like, really? Come on. Like, nobody says, excuse me. And a flight attendant turns around and said, hey. And I'm like, okay, with Delta on her lapel. And I said, I didn't hear anybody say, excuse me. And she looks at me and goes, well, then open your ears. Like, just yells at me. And I'm like, oh, like half my brain is irate and offended. And my other half of my brain is like, this will be a brilliant story one day. It's going to be amazing. Like, I'm challenged. My content brain is happy. My customer brain's angry. And I finally get through the security point, and I tweet, and I'm like, Delta Airlines flight attendant pushes in front of me at JFK security. When I ask for excuse me, she says, open your ears. And I tweet it, and I misspelled Delta. That's the best part, by the way. I spelled it Detla. And I was so blind with rage, I couldn't even spell properly. Like, have you ever been so mad you can't spell? And I tweet that out. I tweet it out, and 3 minutes later, Delta Assist, their customer service Twitter handle, tweets me back and sincerely apologizes to me. Like, they have a search setting set up on their social software that looks for angry misspellings of their name. Like, they're very smart in how they do these things. So 3 minutes later, they replied back to me, and it catches me totally off guard. It was a sincere apology. Like, what could I do? I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I didn't want a voucher. At the time, I wanted my own plane, and I demanded my kingdom. But really, I didn't want any of that. When people complain online, what they're really looking for validation that, that shouldn't have happened. And they didn't throw people under the bus. They just said, you know what? That shouldn't have happened. We're sorry. And that changed my brain. But if they sent that 3 hours later instead of 3 minutes later, I would have been gone. And that's where immediacy really jumped in.
I like that you pointed out that you made a misspelling, and they were still able to catch somebody talking about their brand. And even if it didn't make you happy, other people are going to see that. And it's just a positive reflection on them for other people who, I remember when I started working, and, my boss came to me and said, the customer's always right. Make sure that you treat them well. Well, that hasn't changed. It's just happening online. And we've been talking about this for years, but there's still brands that don't get it. And there's still business leaders that don't get it as well. One of the things that I've heard you say that is kind of a pet peeve of yours is actually scheduling content to be posted. And I would say also people who post to one site and have it forwarded to another site, which is basically the same thing, because they're not on that other social media site to see people responding to their creative or their video or their post about their business or whatever it is they're saying. So they might as well be scheduled tweets, which, I'm not as opposed to it as you are, as long as you're checking the content and making sure that you're responsive. But I see your point. What's an example of maybe somebody who's done that and you've had a bad experience with it?
Well, I want to make a point where we're talking about, because I've had a problem with this since the inception of social media, and I still do. It was in the first book, it's in the new book, where people who will schedule or automate postings, and now the new reasoning to me, they go, oh, Scott, like you just said, Scott, it's okay because I'm still listening. Like I actually, we have a thing where if somebody tweets me back, I'll get a notification. The problem, if all you're doing is scheduling tweets or scheduling posts, and all you react to is people replying to your content, you're no longer giving to the infrastructure of the social site. If all you're doing is listening for your own name to be called, that's not social media. That's not networking. That's being selfish. We're only listening for ourselves. Look, I'm giving it to the peons, to the mass public. And if they talk to me, I shall talk back. But remember Twitter in 09, 08, 2010, where we went on there and looked what people were saying and then jumped into conversations we thought were relevant or important, and we talked with each other. And now we're just all walking around with these plugs in our ears, but we'll get a little buzz in it if our name is said. That's not social media. That's responding. That's reactive media. And that's the problem. I include myself in this, by the way. I've never scheduled. I've never synced posts, but I will reply to anybody who talks to me, because once I got bigger and bigger and bigger on Twitter, I'm like, well, I don't have time to just talk to everybody. I'll make sure I talk to people who send a tweet at me. And that's all I was doing for 2 years, because people would say, I like the book, and I got to respond to them, and they'd ask me something. But all I was doing was I was not fulfilling the infrastructure part of Twitter and jumping back into other conversations, which made Twitter great originally. And that's the problem I still have, even more so now. People then, because I'll still be listening when I schedule it. I just don't know what is so important that it has to be sent out at Wednesday at 10 a.m., but not important enough for you to sit there for 7 seconds and send it yourself and be there for the immediate response. I just think it's making Twitter crumble at its foundation for me, to the point where now I start to question sometimes why I go, and I realized I'm the problem. I'm actually the problem there, not everybody else. We all got to realize that we are the ones who are doing it. Especially a lot of us who are in social. We're the ones programming. I can't follow most of my peers in social. I have a hidden list, an awesome sauce list, with 90 people in there that I'll follow their tweets, whatever they say. None of them are authors and social media experts. None. Because I can't stand it. And that's sad. That's really sad.
Yeah, I understand. And it's a lot of scheduled, so it's too much content sometimes. I've been there, and you probably have too, where you're meeting with a client and they have this thing that they want to do, and they say, we want to create a viral video, and they think there's like this formula to it. Now, I've heard you talk about this one, and I've been a fan of this specific one myself in the past, and it's Mike's Golf Shop, right? So this guy who totally stays on point with his content creates this phone video, like selfie video of himself, and
howdy y'all, this here's Mike. Down at Mike's Golf Shop, where we buy golf. That's right, we buy golf clubs. Mike's Golf Shop. Come on over here, we buy golf clubs. Over at Mike's Golf Shop. Come on down here. We buy golf clubs. That's right. We buy golf clubs. We buy golf clubs. We buy golf clubs.
I gotta say,
we buy golf clubs.
I gotta give it to Mike.
We buy golf clubs.
He definitely
stays on message.
He stays on message. He stays on point, and it's kind of, you look at it, you're like, why does this work? But that it's been reposted and reposted. That had like 500,000 plus hits. It's had the same or better on other sites, and he's staying on point, but he's just some guy promoting his golf business, which I've watched this video a zillion times. I know you've talked about it. What makes us interested in marketing that's funny?
It's just, I can't even function after I hear that one. It's just so good. It's just, it's a flip phone too. It's just so good that he's just like, I'm going to make me one of them viral videos, and then I'm going to put it on the YouTubes. And it's just,
and the Twitters.
The best line is, we buy golf. Like the first one is just simply like, we just buy the entire thought of golf. And then he gets down to the golf clubs. I can't breathe properly. It's so good. I just think it's just one of those things you just don't plan viral. There's no shortage of a billion bad videos on YouTube or anywhere else that places have tried. But it's like that. It's like the mini mall. What's that? It's just like a mini mall. Like it's the Montgomery, Alabama. It's the guy who does the whole his furniture store stuff. It's just, and he does the dance, and that ended up in Family Guy. Like we love the funny. We love people we don't think they know what they're doing. It's just the biggest thing about viral is you can't predict viral. And we used to have a viral marketing company. It was one of the most successful viral marketing companies in the world when it comes to viral videos back in the day when we had dial-up. And the only thing I ever learned from that was when you evoke a strong enough emotion, people share it, regardless of what that emotion is. Angry, happy, sad, funny, whatever that emotion is, if you evoke it at a higher level, that's when it goes viral. But the thing with that is most commercials are not evoking any emotion except give us money. And this one is just so freaking funny.
I know.
That I want to go. I would just try to, and because I just want to ask them, do you actually buy golf clubs? Like
he buys golf.
Your brand message wasn't clear, and I really would like to know what you actually are buying at the store. So it's just such a wonderful
I want to meet Mike, invite him over for a party or something.
I want to hang out with them and have a beer.
So talk about something that went viral most recently, the ALS challenge, which originally you came out and said, like I thought, which is my first immediate instinct was, this is just a bunch of people who, the cool kids in school are all saying, hey, let's do this thing. But it continued to get traction and build. And I was a big supporter of it after a while. And then it was like, oh my God, I'm still seeing these videos. But it has worked. And talk about something that went very viral and was not intended to necessarily. No one knew that this would happen. It's a huge success. And you've got a background in nonprofit. What would you say about this type of effort, and what's the formula? Again, how do you know this is going to happen?
It's amazing to me that I was originally coming out because I was skeptical, like that's what my brain is. And what I originally misinterpreted was donate $100 or you poured ice on your head. And I'm right, like all these videos are going viral, people who are cheaping out on ALS, they're not donating at all. Then I realized when they said they're donating $10 if you did the video, I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually much better. And then it went, bananas. And our whole family did it. We all did it out front, and I had the video to prove it. And I realized that it's just so hard to raise money, and it's so hard to raise money without incurring a large amount of overhead to do it. And look at the studies. It's anywhere from $1 it could cost to raise that $1. And the brilliance of it is not just it's just. Every nonprofit, every charity hates it, I assume, because it's not theirs, and it wasn't ALS's. They didn't come up with it. That's the most brilliant part of it all. It wasn't a campaign. It was a couple guys who came up, and this is the guy he picked a charity to do this for, and it had a great take 3 people, nominate them. You can get out of it by doing this. Donate. It just made it so. And then it had that whole lifeline of what viral. They have the naysayers, the angry people, and this and that. And it's no matter what, it's the greatest fundraising case study in the history of fundraising to me. It's mind blowing, not just for money wise, but for awareness that ALS is a second tier publicity disease, meaning it doesn't get the press that something like breast cancer would get or lung cancer would get. I'm just talking pure of business on a publicity on a nonprofit side of things. I hate putting these into categories, but on a publicity side, if you look at mentions and bike-a-thons and marathons, ALS is sadly second tier, but to me, number 1 tier illness that if you get it, you die. Like there's no way around that. And forgetting the publicity, the awareness, and the fundraising, it was the purpose of fundraising. And you know what? And when people started complaining about it, I looked at it and said, there's so much horribleness in the world right now happening. There's so much wrong with the world that if this is what's making us angry, we got to look at our priorities, because I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing from every walk of life, from every country in the world, from the president of the United States down to, a 2-year-old all the way up to a 95-year-old. I like it. It's beautiful.
I want to talk about building your personal brand, because you mentioned a lot of celebrities and celebrity endorsements and how they use social media, as well as somebody who is just starting. But before I do, I want to thank another sponsor of Marketing Mavericks, which is Hover. So I often think that I have a brilliant idea. I know we all probably do. Well, when I do, I immediately think I need the URL for that. I need the domain name. So when you have a great idea, you probably want to secure a domain name for it too, right? Well, you want something catchy and memorable to represent you and your online identity. Hover gives you exactly what you need to get the job done. You can choose whatever you like, .club, .ninja, my favorite, or just about anything. Geeks, developers, designers, and programmers love Hover because they know they'll have the best tools and support. But you don't have to be an expert to get a domain. The service is simple enough, anybody can use it. Hover takes the hassle and friction out of registering a domain. It gives easy to use, powerful tools to manage your domain so that anybody literally can do it. You can get the perfect domain name and start building your web presence right away. In fact, it's so easy. All you do is search a few keywords and Hover will show you the best available options and suggestions. Hover is a clean and simple website. And in fact, in less than, get this, 5 minutes, you can find the domain name you want and get it up and running. Go figure. Hover offers a valet transfer service to make the process completely painless. And for free, Hover will take care of the entire process for you and let you know when your domains are settled in your Hover account. They'll transfer all your DNS settings, no matter how many domain names you have. It's at no additional cost. Hover's honest. They don't believe in heavy-handed upselling. They include everything you need with your domain. No more, no less. They include custom email. You'll get a smart control panel so that you can do what you want with your domain name. Plus, Whois Privacy is included for free on every domain name supports it. If you ever need it, Hover's the best customer support around. It's known for its no wait, no hold, no transfer phone service. When you call, a real person is ready to help. And Hover offers now volume discounts. They'll give you a discount on your domain renewals starting at just 10 domains and then going up in value from there. The idea is the more domains you have in your account, the less you have to pay to renew them. So visit Hover today to register your domain name. And for 10% off your first purchase, go to hover.com and use our official promo code MM9. And we thank Hover for their support of Marketing Mavericks. I have so many domain names, and it can be a hassle. So the easier you can make it, the better. And I don't know about you. Oh, you know what? This is actually the best segue ever because you have one of my favorite domains on the internet. And when I was preparing for the show, I'm like, I have to include this. You have no.com. I love this. It's so simple. And it's crazy, the kind of analytics that you get for this. I mean, it's the no button on the internet. You did this.
N+15os.com. And why 15? There it is. And ready and scene. That's it. That's the whole site right there. 15 O's because 14 was already registered. And it's also instantnobutton.com. And yeah, 27 million clicks and counting. Sadly, that's what I'll be known for when it's on my gravestone. And that, out of everything, is my claim to geek fame, for sure. I show it at every geek conference before I talk. I'm like, that's me. How's that taste?
You've got a lot of envious people out there. That's the show. We're it. We're out of here.
That's it. Drop the microphone. We're out of here. I own no.
I love the no. And the crazy thing is, it's a simple idea. But again, it's something fun and funny, and people use it. And your analytics are crazy. And you're not driving people to it. They just find it and share it.
I don't touch it. No, I don't touch anything. It's about 10 to 20,000 people a day come to it. We even have an Android app in the Google Play Store. So it's the same thing, by the way. It's just a button. And Apple turned us down. It was funny. We submitted it for iTunes for the App Store, and they said, "I'm sorry, it's not different enough from the website for us to take it." And I'm like, "But the website's a button, and we sent you the button. Like it's a button. The website's the app. Like it's not the other way around." They're like, "Nope, sorry."
I'm sorry. If Yo is an app, then
that's what I mean, right? If Yo's an app, then why isn't no?
They said no. They were just listening. So the personal brand, something that you have mastered, my dear. You have mastered the personal brand. What is your advice to somebody who is just getting started? Maybe they want to be a brand like yours. Maybe they want to do consulting. Maybe they want to do speaking. Maybe they just want to, whatever it is they do, they want to have a presence on social media. What is your advice to somebody just getting started?
I do the same thing with my personal brand that I did when I started. And I have the easiest job in the world when it comes to my brand, because I honestly, 100%, it's me. I am the same person right now as I am on stage, as I am on Twitter, as I am in my blog posts, as I am in the books. I've used my own voice. There was no strategy with that except being me. Like I wasn't going to try to be this person or like this person. Like I was going to wear a suit on stage for the first 2 years I was speaking. But then when I really got my feet into it and got clients, then I could just wear a golf shirt and jeans. And then I could show them, no, I haven't worn a suit the entire time. And for me, it was, my voice is my voice. And so I never have to watch myself. I never have to wonder if something's off brand or not, because I'm totally honest with you. It's exactly, I had somebody email yesterday and say, is this really refreshing after I met you, after your talk, you talked the same way. And for me, it was because I realized a lot of people on stage are different off stage, or on Twitter, they're one way, and then you meet them in person and they're totally different style personality. I am exactly the same way. And I just think, now, if that means your personality is you're a jackass, then maybe that doesn't work very well for you, in all mediums and forms. But that's the best personal brand advice I can give is it's going to be you. And maybe that doesn't fit necessarily with whatever industry you're in, but sometimes you've got to polarize people. If you want to attract people, you're going to repel some other ones. If you try to be just kind of vanilla to everybody, it doesn't really attract anybody to you.
You have a lot of conversations with people about how they're marketing, where they should respond to things. You recently had a conversation with someone who, I think you said at the end that I think you made it dumber. You felt dumber after you went through that conversation. It was with a woman who posted on Twitter about, she's a digital consultant, ironically,
Yep.
and she didn't agree with posting comments on a blog. It was this crazy conversation. And I guess I can't understand why a digital consultant would think that you shouldn't allow people to make comments on your post. Explain how that conversation went down.
Well, what we're talking about, kind of one of the things that's come up a lot recently, where that particular one was about with Chris Brogan stopping commenting on his blogs, and Copy Blogger did it as well. A bunch of places have done it now. That's kind of one of the new things, saying, should we just cut it because of spam, because a lot of maintenance, and a lot of people who comment are just trying to get their own platform. And so we start talking about it. And this one woman says, this digital consultant says, that's why phone calls are the only true conversation, or face-to-face. I'm like, well, no. You can still have conversations in blog posts. There's threads. Twitter, we're having one right now. And she's like, this is not a conversation. I'm like, what? Like, we're talking back and forth right now. And she goes, no, conversation is two-way communication. I'm like, we're talking right now on Twitter. She's like, and I look at her saying, I can't believe I'm having a conversation with you about how this is not a conversation. She's like, well, yeah, we just don't see eye to eye. This is just a message. And I'm like, I'm now dumber for talking to you right now. Like, I've just lost. It's like Billy Madison. Like I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul, because it's just I am now dumber for witnessing and being a part of the conversation. A conversation to me is going back and forth with something, and that it's virtual versus in person. There's different levels of it, but come on. Like this person said, only a phone call. I'm like, I don't know what generation you're from, but every generation below me doesn't like talking on the phone for the most part, and my son, getting him on the phone doesn't even happen. Like he heard a busy signal for the first time in his life last month. It doesn't exist anymore. That's not the way to you connect and have conversations with people in whatever avenue they want. It was just, I realized it's just that people are fascinating. That's the best way I can put it right now without being too offensive. It's just, people are fascinating to me.
So, and I would agree with you wholeheartedly on the younger and younger demographics. So what do brands and businesses need to do differently to engage and have those conversations online? Because I would agree with you. I don't even really like check voicemail. Like, I prefer people just text me. I don't need to call into a call center. And I think, the days of big call centers are going to continually change. And those call centers, instead of actually taking calls, they might actually be monitoring the web. But it's a different way of communication. So what do they need to do to understand this?
I think what they don't need to do first is force themselves into those conversations. Example we had was the Instagram sponsored post that McDonald's were running for their bacon double cheeseburger. And it was just like inserting sponsored pictures into people's Instagram feeds. And people, especially big Instagram fans of the millennials and all that type of generation, where they're really very, very, very selective of their stream. And you don't want to interrupt that with something. And they did it totally wrong. They tried to sound cool. It's like me trying to sound cool to my kids. It just does not work. It just is like, I'm like, that looks hip and cool, daddy, yo, and no, it just makes it worse that you can be available in those platforms. You can have an account in those platforms so they can come to you, and you should be listening for it, but don't force yourself into that conversation. It's just like if we were at a networking event and you and I were talking about Apple and an Apple rep just jumped out of the ceiling. Like, you don't need to be, brands don't have to be part of every conversation. They have to be able to listen a lot and know when to be able to go into these conversations, not be in every one.
So one of my favorite examples that you've listed, and I think this can be such an opportunity for resorts, hotels, is, their goal at a hotel is heads in beds, right? So the more people that stay at their whether it's a resort or, an evening kind of motel, whatever, it's all about feeling like you have a clean room, but you also have to feel like it's a place that you feel safe and comfortable. And the more you spend, the more you're going to expect better customer service. And I've certainly had some really bad customer service where they wanted to charge me for each individual towel and they wanted to double book my room. And it was really bad. In fact, I don't even want to say it was bad. But you've got a good example of where a customer stayed at a hotel and their child left something behind. Tell us about that.
Oh, Joshy the giraffe. Yes, he was staying at the Ritz-Carlton, Amelia Island in Florida. A family was there, and one of the kids forgot or lost his favorite toy. It happened to be Joshy, which was a stuffed giraffe that got rolled up in the laundry and didn't realize. And they got back to Arizona and didn't realize it was gone. Of course, the kid panics like any kid would do, losing their favorite security kind of blanket. And the father did what any good father would do and lied to him and said that Joshy was on extended vacation. And then he phones the Ritz-Carlton and says, please tell me you found Joshy. And not only did they find him, and not only did they overnight him back, but they sent back photos of Joshy's extended vacation. You got pictures of him in the spa, pictures of him at the pool, at the golf course, meeting new friends at the bar. Other stuffed animals were in the picture. And they overnighted it back with photos and an ID badge for Joshy now that he was an official ambassador and employee of the Ritz-Carlton, and a letter from the GM saying how nice of it was if he extended his visit. And it's just, that's the type of thing that gets told. It's told stories, and I read the father doesn't have a choice. He's got to tell other people about it because it's so amazing. And they just made awesome things and let people tell the stories. We all want word of mouth as businesses, but we're not putting words out there or stories out there for people to use those mouths to tell. And that's what Joshy is to me. It's just a great story. And Ritz-Carlton's famous for these type of things, that it just makes it awesome. When you look at something and say, oh, it's awesome, you just automatically want to click and share and spread because it's just a wonderful thing. People like to tell stories, so why don't we create those stories for them to tell?
I couldn't agree more. When I first heard you tell the story, I thought this is exactly what every business needs to do. They really need to go this extra mile, we used to call it, right? Right. And taking care of your customer, because it makes such a difference. I mean, making them feel special, because as a customer myself, I hear this story. I don't have kids, but you know what? It makes me want to stay there because I'm like, wow, they really care. And you've had the experience where I think you talked about another hotel where you stayed personally and went to set your, wake up alarm, and they went the extra mile for you, and I think you spent a little extra money.
I did. I called for a wake up call, and they're always automated. You press 7 and 00, then 1 for AM or 9 for PM, and it's just like it's always automation. And I understand you got to automate a lot of things. I get it; they have to be scalable. But I called for it, and in Arizona, only once, I stay in hundreds of hotels, and only once I called, and someone picks up the phone and they're like, yeah, wake up call, Mr. Stratten. I'm like, yeah. How'd you know? Because I pressed the wake up call button. And I said, 7:30 a.m., please. And she responds with, ooh, that's really early. Did you? I'm like, it is really early. She goes, would you like some coffee sent to your room after that? Because, I know it's a really early time. And I think I would, I'd need some coffee. I'm like, it is really early. I think I will have some coffee. She's like, well, would you like it to be brought up at 7:35 instead of 7:30? Because I know at 7:30 I'd probably hate people. I'm like, I will hate people at 7:30. I would like to wait till 7:35. Thank you. She's like, well, is there anything else? I'm like, no. And she's like, well, I hope you have a great evening and an even better tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm near tears now. I'm like, I love you, wake up call lady. Thank you. And the next morning, 7:30, the wake up call comes, and 7:35, the coffee shows up, and I've got no problem paying $78 for room service coffee now, because it was totally sold to me properly. Like that to me was the unselling to me, was just the way it was handled, the way it was done. It wasn't like, do you want this? Do you want this? Or here's a thing to check off. It was just personal touch. She earned her day's pay with one phone call.
You, as a business person, I'm sure have maybe people that you look up to or that you respect, and you've talked quite a bit about your son on social media. You're pretty open about your family. In fact, earlier, as we were getting ready to start the show, you're like, hey, we've got 4 kids, we've got 2 cats, 2 dogs. I mean, you've got a house full of people. Whether it's all 4 kids or your son specifically, what do you hope that as a business person that you set as an example for him or them?
I just think that I don't want to be that part of that parenting generation that may have their job or their business first and their family second. And I want to show them an example that you are good as yourself. You can do things that you love to do, that work doesn't have to be work, and that cheesy side of things. But it's true. If you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. I did 9 gigs just in 9 days, just airplanes and hotels and cars. And I didn't work a second. I love it. And I think that it's not like you have to wait till you retire to enjoy it. And I take the summer off. So we take July and August off. I take December off. And to be with them, to say, it doesn't have to be the way everybody expects it to be. And that's just nice. Like he just turned 13. I got about probably 10 more days of him thinking I'm even remotely cool, and then it's done. Like it's just going to wear away, and I get it. So I don't want to sing Cats in the Cradle 10 years from now and just wish I could get the time back. And I want to lead by example. I want to be home. I don't want to be stressed when I'm at home. I want to be there and enjoy it when I'm home, and love what I do when I'm gone. And that's the best thing I can leave for him.
I've got a couple of other examples. I also want to talk about what's next for you and your book that's coming out on the 29th. Before I do, I want to thank one more sponsor of Marketing Mavericks, which is Shutterstock, and what they offer, which is pretty amazing. So if let's say you need Shutterstock, you need pictures, and I know that our guest here uses pictures all the time, but at Shutterstock.com, you'll find the perfect image or video for your next creative project. Whether it's for your website or a publication, maybe it's for an ad that you're building or a video or any other type of project, you can choose from, get this, 40 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. Shutterstock sources images from around the world and puts them right at your fingertips. Many contributors to Shutterstock are professional photographers and artists. Shutterstock reviews each image individually for content and quality before adding it to its library. And Shutterstock adds, this is the really mind-blowing part, 275,000 images every week. That's a heck of a lot of images. So every time you visit, you'll find something new. Shutterstock has flexible pricing. You can choose individual image packs or monthly subscriptions for your best deal. And a standard subscription is 25 images a day. You can download any image in any size and pay only one price. Shutterstock gives you the images you need to bring your creative projects to the next level, and they make it easy. Shutterstock has sophisticated search tools. You can search, drill down on a subject, a color, a palette, file type, gender, emotion, and more. Shareable lightboxes. This is something that saves images for you. So you save images in your Lightbox gallery, then you can access them anytime and share them with other team members, which is great, especially if you're on the road a lot and you need to be able to share something quickly. You can use Shutterstock for that. And they have an award-winning iPad app. So search on the go, like I said, and use to display images during presentations. It's really simple and lots of options. Shutterstock is a global marketplace. They have multilingual customer service in more than a dozen international countries and full-time customer support throughout the week. So here's the thing. No credit card needed. All you got to do to start is just get an account by begin using Shutterstock to help imagine what your next project could be like and save favorite images to your Lightbox to review later. Once you decide to purchase, use offer code MM914 and new accounts will receive 20% off image subscription packages. That's Shutterstock.com. And for 20% off your subscription packages on new accounts, use offer code MM914. It's a great idea. Don't steal images off of Google or whatever. Get clean images that you can use to promote your business. And Shutterstock does that with lots and lots of choices. So I highly recommend. And I know you post a lot of things and you want to use legal images, right? Right, Scott?
And I have the best story for that, legal images or not. It's we actually put it in the new book and on selling. I'm at a talk, okay? So I'm at a conference. I'm about to go on stage, and there's one guy before me. And this guy is from the CRTC, which is the Canadian Radio Telecommunications Council, or something where their job is governing, making sure that the things that are broadcast and are used are compliant and legal and copyright and all these things. He's doing his talk, and I'm in the audience, and he starts bringing up stock photos to bring up his point. Okay, like somebody holding a cell phone because he's talking about mobile, somebody typing on a computer because he's like really groundbreaking things here. And I look up on the screen, and all I see, and a watermark across the image, it says Shutterstock, meaning he stole the photos from the site. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. Whoa. Maybe it's one because, okay, I don't know. He grabbed, because, you don't right click and grab it because obviously they have to be watermarked because you need to pay for it to have a subscription to it. And then he goes to the next slide, Shutterstock, right across it, like a giant banner. That's like pretty much, this is stolen. Every slide was a not paid for photo by the people who govern my country's use of communication. It was the greatest moment of my life. It was amazing. It was so amazing. I was texting Allison. I'm like, I don't even know what to do right now. I can't even function right now. I don't know what to do. And I said, don't bring it up on stage. Don't bring it up stage. I get up on stage, and I only mentioned it 3 times on stage when I was talking for that 45 minutes. And of course, the whole audience was so taken aback. I brought it up, and they lost their mind. They screamed laughing, because they all thought of it. And this one guy is oblivious, just oblivious. Even when I brought it up on stage, he's in the crowd like, I don't even know who he's talking about right now. That's pretty crazy. It was so ridiculous. There's your moral of your story, people. Buy your photos. Pay for your photos, get the rights for your photos, and you could do it with 20% off.
That's right. And this guy listens. So you know, again, you're knocking out your 4th book. A big fan of your work, and you're doing some fun videos to promote it, to get people interested kind of in the pre-order phase. It's on the 29th, right?
Yep.
Will you already be on vacation by then?
Yes.
And where are you headed?
We're getting out of here. We're going to Costa Rica. What else can we do now? We can't write anything else. It's done. We wrote it, 3 years ago? I don't know. That's how long it takes to get a book published. So it's already written, it's done, and there's not much we can do now. So we're going to go and sit back and have a beverage or 12 and just enjoy.
So you've also started a podcast, but what was your inspiration to just start writing? I mean, I've had authors on the show before, and they talked about how they really wanted to do this, and they've done all these other things, but they just, what was the impetus? What made you say, I need to write a book?
Well, when I got offered a contract, I think it was just like, and I wrote it because there was a deadline. Like, that's pretty much how it worked. It was, I always wanted to, and I knew that in speaking, if you wanted to get anywhere in keynote speaking, you had to have a book. I told you I picked UnMarketing as a name because I thought it was going to look good on a book cover. But it would just happen one day that Shannon Vargo, my fantastic editor at Wiley, phoned me, which I didn't have before. She phoned me. I didn't know who she was. She got my name from somebody and said, hey, why haven't you written a book yet? And I just said, why haven't you offered me a book deal yet? And then we kind of went touche, and that's where it started. And the next thing you know, we signed the contract, and off it went. And I kind of got handcuffed at about 30,000 words or so. I started writing it like 18 days before it was due because I'm an idiot. And I started writing. I was like cramming for a college exam or something like that. And about halfway through writing it, I'm like, I just can't get this all done. And that's when Allison kind of came along and said, why don't you give me a shot at it? And I would just talk, and she would type and make 100 words into 1,000, and she'd watch all my talks and the videos. And ever since then, we've been writing it together. So now that's why this book is by Scott Stratten and Allison Kramer. It's she's been behind and in front and with all the books, and it's time for us to share that kind of masthead on it. But here's the ironic part, and the bad part is that one of the unselling factors of it and the marketing hooks of it is it's a blank cover. It's just a plain white cover, and the very bottom corner just says unselling, no author name, no publisher logo. So of course the first book Allison's name goes on has no names on the cover. So it's like I did this totally backwards, but we are both on the back cover, and we have a bio picture together, and we wrote a joint bio. We call it a GIO, and it's awesome.
And this book is different than your other books. How is that?
It's just you almost get to this next phase of how you talk about things, how you write things, and I just think it's that next step. That's why we were hesitant to call it a sequel to UnMarketing, because it's not like UnMarketing necessarily. It's just that next level of thinking for us, where we talk a lot of theory stuff. We do a lot of interviews in it, and I just think we're getting better and better. I know every place and every person says this one's the best, since every product's new and improved. I just think this is our best work yet, for sure.
So if somebody wants to buy the book, what's the best way they can do that?
If you go, before the 29th, you go to unsellingthebook.com, and you got a lot of pre-order fun stuff. If you go after, you can still go to unsellingthebook.com, and you can go to anywhere, really. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever your local bookseller sells it. It'll all be on the shelves. So wherever you prefer, go ahead and grab it.
That's very customer friendly of you. What's next for you? I mean, you've got the podcast that you launched this year, which I think I've heard you say that you absolutely love doing, and I'm a fan. It's funny. I would suggest that somebody not just listen to your podcast; they actually need to watch what you guys are doing, because you're like half the time you're climbing under the table. You're doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
It's what Alice and I get to do together. We do that one, and we do the Vegas 30, which is Vegas for people over 30. And it's too old to stand in line, but too young to retire to bingo. And because we're Vegas addicts, we love it there. And it's my favorite thing we've ever done in business. We're going to record tomorrow in the studio. So I just can't wait. It's just it gives us a great platform. I never blogged every week. I blog like 6 times a year. And a weekly show gives me a perfect platform for us to discuss topics that keep coming up that I don't want to write about, but I would love to talk about.
Well, I'm sure the answer is probably going to be Cirque du Soleil, but because I know they've even been a client of yours. You actually got them off of Twitter, right? They followed you?
They were the first brand ever to reply to me on Twitter, and that was awesome. So I do love them.
I do love them. So take that out of the equation. What's the best thing to do in Vegas?
Absinthe, not the drink, the play, the show. Absinthe at Caesars is a phenomenal show. We just saw it our last trip out there. And I put it up there with most of the Cirque shows. It was so good. It's so politically incorrect, so funny, but also so amazing with the performances and the acrobatics. It's all close up, so it's pretty phenomenal. But we love to eat at places like we stay at Caesars. So if you did the ideal Scott and Allison trip to Vegas, if we could plan it for you, you'd be staying at Caesars in the Octavius Tower. You'd be eating at Nobu sushi at night and Homestead steak, and then Rayo's Italian restaurant, and you'd be going to see Cirque du Soleil, Michael Jackson show 1, you'd see Absinthe, and then you just sit there and people watch the rest of the time. It's so good.
If you could meet anyone that's a peer that basically works kind of in this space, whether they're a speaker or they write books or they're a consultant, who would it be?
I am so fortunate that I think. Now, I'd like to meet Seth Godin. I haven't met him, Seth, yet. I've met Gladwell. I've met a lot of people who I admire are my friends now in the industry. So I'm really lucky for that. That a lot of times I keynote, somebody else is keynoting that I want to talk to. I love. I've always loved Seth's stuff. He's been my, he wrote the Bible, permission marketing for me, for over a decade ago. And but he would be a really, really good one to meet, and I would take him. I've met everybody else I really want to meet. I've got, stood beside them, talked at the same stage with them, and I think I'll go with Godin with that one.
That's a great choice. He's kind of a pioneer in the space for sure.
For sure,
fan
100%.
As well. I guess we should let the kids start watching Netflix again, and I really appreciate your time, and I'm kind of jealous that you're going to the beach. So,
I'm looking forward to it.
Are you going to post pictures, Vine videos?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to put the phone away.
Good for you.
Just put it away. I got a wonderful girl in Allison, and I want to spend the entire time just sitting there with her and enjoying exactly where I am, not trying to share where I'm not, type of thing.
What a good guy. Seriously? She's the lucky one. Well, thank you so much again, and hopefully people will follow you. And if they want to follow you, whether it's to buy your book or to hire you to speak at one of their big events, how can they do that, Scott?
UnMarketing.com. That's where all the fun happens. You can drop us a line. UnMarketing on any social platform is where I am, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and just say hi anywhere, anytime.
Anywhere, anytime.
Except over the next 4 days when I'll be in Costa Rica.
I know. We'll have to wait. Thanks again, Scott. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up another episode of Marketing Mavericks. You can find me on Twitter by going to @TonyaHallRadio, and I definitely follow Scott at UnMarketing. You can use the hashtag Marketing Mavericks, or maybe you want to find me on Facebook. I post content, and I will talk to you and answer questions. If you've got some suggestions for the show, maybe you should old school email me at mavericks@twit.tv. I'd love to hear what you think about the conversations and what topics that you think we should cover. So that's a wrap for this show, everybody. And until next week, have a great time.